from one of the most famous scientists to a figure to which people can call him one of the craziest scientists that has ever lived. From being a corrupt official in high government to an extent of predicting the end date, the Earth. Sir Isaac Newton of 1643 to 1727 was an English physicist, mathematician, and astronomer who played a key role in the 17th century scientific revolution. He is best known for his work on the laws of motion, optics, gravity, and calculus. His major works include Principia Mathematica and Optics, which laid the foundation of classical mechanics and modern physical optics respectively. His discovery of the composition of white light integrated the phenomena of colors into the science of light. He was also the original discoverer of the infinitesimal calculus. His contributions have had a profound impact on various fields of science and continue to influence our understanding of the world. Here are 10 interesting facts about Isaac Newton. Subscribe to ERD. Number 1. Did you know that Newton turned into self-isolation and studied in private, which could have answered some of today's questions? He got into a controversy when Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz in 1708 when John Keel, a staunch supporter of Newton, accused Leibniz of plagiarizing Newton's method of fluxions. The dispute was further inflamed by the political climate at the time, which was agitated by the Hanoverian succession. In response to these accusations, the Royal Society, under Newton's presidency, decided to investigate the matter. However, the investigation was far from impartial. Newton handpicked a committee of his supporters to review the case and even composed the committee's findings himself. The report, unsurprisingly, favored Newton. The public elements of the priority dispute had the effect of expanding a schism between Newton and Leibniz into a schism between the English associated with the Royal Society and the group who had been working with Leibniz on the calculus since the 1690s. This schism in turn transformed into one that isolated it from much of the scientific community. Despite the controversy and the bitterness it engendered, Newton continued his work. His legendary advances date almost entirely from his years in Cambridge. Nevertheless, save for his optical papers of the early 1670s and the first edition of the Principia, all these works published before he died fell within his years in London. Number 2. Did you know that Newton rewritten one of his books to convince a person? Christian Huygens, a leading figure in the scientific community, was initially skeptical of Newton's theory of universal gravitation. He was particularly concerned about the concept of action at a distance, which he saw as invoking an occult power. Despite his admiration for Newton, Huygens found it difficult to reconcile this aspect of Newton's theory with his own mechanistic philosophy. In response to Huygens' skepticism, Newton embarked on a radical rewriting of the Principia in the early 1690s. This was not a task undertaken lightly. Newton was acutely aware of Huygens' stature in the scientific community and understood the importance of addressing his concerns. Newton's revised Principia presented his theories in a more detailed and rigorous mathematical framework. He hoped that this would address Huygens' concerns and convince him of the validity of his theory of universal gravitation. However, despite Newton's efforts, Huygens remained unconvinced. He continued to express his reservations about Newton's theory of gravity and maintained his preference for a mechanical explanation of gravitational phenomena. Number 3. Did you know that Newton backstabbed his partner in his studies? In the summer of 1694, Newton managed to persuade Flamsteed, who was the first astronomer royal, to give him 50 of his observations of the moon, and also secured a promise of another 100 observations. In return, Flamsteed made Newton promise to use them personally and not to make them public. This agreement marked the beginning of a tumultuous relationship characterized by mutual need, but also by growing resentment. As Newton's influence grew, so did his demands on Flamsteed. He exerted pressure on Flamsteed to provide further observations, promising him fame. The observations were published along with his theory. However, the two men's relationship soured over time, culminating in a bitter feud. Despite their personal differences, both Newton and Flamsteed made significant contributions to science. Newton's theories revolutionized our understanding of the physical world, while Flamsteed's meticulous observations laid the groundwork for future astronomical discoveries. However, Newton's position as the president of the Royal Society allowed him to exert considerable influence over Flamsteed. In a controversial move, Newton, as president of the Royal Society, got control of the Royal Observatory and had Flamsteed's star catalogue printed without his knowledge. This act, seen by many as an abuse of power, further strained their relationship. In number 4, did you know that Newton beat up his bully? Despite his intelligence in the field of science and mathematics, he was also fierce in his enemies. In the quiet town of Grantham, England, a young Isaac Newton attended the King's School, a place where boys were molded into men of character and knowledge. However, it was not the classroom lessons that defined Newton's early years, but an incident that took place in the school's churchyard. One day, after the school bell had rung, a boy who was known to be a bully crossed paths with Newton. The bully, larger and seemingly stronger, had been a torment to many in the school, including Newton. On this particular day, the bully's taunts and jeers became unbearable for Newton. Filled with a surge of courage, Newton challenged the bully to a fight. As the news spread, the crowd of students gathered in the churchyard, their eyes wide with anticipation. The master's sons, a figure of authority and respect, came out to watch, clapping one on the back and winking at the other. The air was thick with tension as Newton, the smaller of the two, stood his ground against the bully. The fight began, and to everyone's surprise, it was Newton whom Tommy hated. Despite his smaller stature, he fought with a spirit and resolution that none had expected. He was relentless, his every move a testament to his determination. The bully, taken aback by Newton's ferocity, found himself on the defensive. The fight ended with Newton standing victorious, the bully beaten and unwilling to fight anymore. The crowd erupted in cheers. Their perception of the quiet, studious Newton forever changed. From that day forward, Newton was no longer just another student. He was a symbol of courage and resilience. This incident was a turning point in Newton's life. It taught him that physical size and strength were not the only measures of a person's ability. It was the spirit and determination within it that truly mattered. This lesson served Newton well in his later years, as he made significant contributions to the fields of physics, mathematics, and astronomy. Number 5. Did you know that Newton's first experiment was jumping in the middle of a storm? The first experiment that some knows on the internet was Isaac Newton poking a hole in a piece of wood that created the discovery of studying optics, which doesn't seem to be correct at all. To give you an overview, he conducted an experiment in 1666 when he was 23. He thought the ingenious idea of making a tiny hole in a piece of wood to isolate a small ray of light. He then directed this light into a prism that refracted the light onto a white piece of paper. At this point, he was able to identify different colors, seeing red and blue at the edges of where the ray was hitting the paper. Eventually, he discovered that white light is composed of a spectrum of colors. This experiment challenged existing theories and paved the way for future advancements in optics, but this was just one of the first experiments he conducted in his college life. According to Isaac Newton's biography book in 1979, written by historian Alfred Rupert Hall, his first experiment he ever made was at the age of 15 on the day of Cromwell's death and when a great storm swept England. By jumping first with the wind and then against, and comparing his leaps with those of a calm day, he measured the vis of the storm. When the boys were puzzled by his saying that the storm was a foot stronger than any he had known before, he showed them the marks that measured his leaps. According to one version of the story, he craftily used the wind to win a jumping contest. Again, the superior cunning which made him suspect. And the list goes on with Isaac Newton's first experiments when he was studying in King's School. Newton's first experiment was a simple, yet effective demonstration of wind resistance. His ability to use the wind to his advantage in a jumping contest illustrates how an understanding of physical forces can be used to our advantage. This story serves as a reminder of Newton's ingenuity and his significant contributions to our understanding of the physical world. Number 6. Did you know that Isaac Newton almost ruined his eyes? At the age of 22, Newton conducted an experiment that involved looking at the reflection of the sun in a mirror while standing in a darkened room. This situation was almost guaranteed to maximize the damage by dilating the pupil. He stared at the sun with one eye until he could hardly see anything besides red and blues. The aftermath of this experiment was severe. Newton essentially blinded himself for 3 days and experienced after images for months. Despite the pain and discomfort, his eyes eventually recovered. This experiment, as dangerous as it was, underscores Newton's fearless pursuit of knowledge. He was willing to risk his own well-being to explore the mysteries of light and color. Also highlights the importance of safety precautions in scientific experiments, a lesson that is still relevant today. Number 7. Did you know that Isaac Newton was in love? Isaac Newton, one of the most influential figures in the history of science, was also a man of deep emotions. One such relationship was with a woman known only as Miss Storer. Isaac Newton and Miss Storer knew each other from their youth. Newton, who was deeply engrossed in his studies, was said to have been engaged to Miss Storer in his late teens. However, as Newton became more absorbed in his work, the romance cooled. Eventually, Miss Storer married someone else. Despite this, it is said that Newton kept a warm memory of his love for her. This relationship was the only romantic involvement recorded in Newton's life, and he never married. There are rumors that he remained a confirmed celibate, being highly engrossed in his studies and work. The relationship with Miss Storer had a profound impact on Newton. It is believed that his unrequited love for her may have influenced his decision to remain single and dedicate his life to scientific pursuits. Number 8. Did you know that Isaac Newton is born into Puritanism? Puritanism is a religious reform movement that began in England in the late 16th and 17th centuries. They followed a stern moral code and lived by religious values. Followers of Puritanism believed in self-reliance, moral sturdiness, tenacity, political isolationism, and austere living. Their settlements were organized into towns, with their meeting house or the church at the center of town. A typical day for a Puritan started at dawn and ended at dusk. They focused on living simple and peaceful lives. They farmed and fished, and their meals often included fish, fresh or salted meats, and a stew with vegetables from their gardens. Newton's early years were shaped by the Puritan tradition. His father, a farmer, died 2 months before Isaac was born. Raised in a devout family, Newton was exposed to the Puritan values of hard work, moral rectitude, and a personal relationship with God. The Puritan emphasis on individual interpretation of the scriptures may have influenced Newton's approach to scientific inquiry. Just as Puritans were encouraged to seek their own understanding of the Bible, Newton sought his own path in understanding the natural world. Despite his scientific achievements, Newton remained deeply religious throughout his life. He saw the laws of nature as divine creations and believed that studying them was a way of understanding God's plan. His Puritan upbringing likely played a role in shaping this perspective. Number 9. Did you know that Isaac Newton was artistic? Isaac Newton's time in King's School was rather an amazing moment in his life, for he was able to discover things that a typical person at his age would not be able to do. It was also here that Newton began to show signs of his extraordinary intellect. Going back to Isaac Newton's biography book, Alfred Rupert Hall, Newton became proficient in drawing as well, and once more, Clark's house bore the brunt of his enthusiasm. A later occupant of the garret room testified that the walls were covered with charcoal drawing of birds, beastmen, ships, and plants. Later in the text, it is also said that he also drew portraits of notable figures such as Charles I, John Donne, and the schoolmaster Stokes. Among the various drawings, a few circles and triangles stood out. These geometric shapes were more of a forecast than Newton. We know that all the portraits in birds and ships together. They hinted at the brilliant mathematician and physicist he would become, foreshadowing his groundbreaking the Bible.